Hi everyone, welcome to Flourish by Design TV. Absolutely thrilled to see you here. This is the creative launchpad for activists who are bringing their purpose to the world, and I have an amazing guest for you today. Ken is here from Australia. He's an actor, and he's a TV film actor, transformational coach, and he's a communication story master. So welcome, Kane.
Hi, Caroline. Great to be here. Thank you so much. I just want to acknowledge your amazing beauty and the pure essence of your soul. We've just been having a little bit of a chat, and you really are dynamic in so many areas. So I just want to acknowledge that, and thank you for inviting me here.
Oh, thank you, Kane. I'm so excited, and it's amazing to have the connection with you so far away, because I'm in Dublin. Everybody, if you don't know me, my name is Caroline, and I run Flourish by Design, and this is a creative platform really around my purpose around bringing creatives together for this dynamic, action in the world. So we're bringing our purpose to the world in our unique way. And Kane is, we become actually a little bit of context on how we know each other. We have a mutual friend who's Steve Knapp in Melbourne, Australia, who's a mindset coach. And I first saw Kane on an interview with him actually about, I'd say maybe 6 months ago, maybe more than that, maybe 8 months ago. And I was really blown away by Kane's dynamic nature. You've got a fabulous kind of energy that just explodes on the screen. And I was been watching you, over the last 6 months, and I know you've been doing coaching programs, and I was actually lucky enough to be in a workshop with Kane during the summer. So I got a taste of his coaching style, which is fabulous. And, but I've actually seen him come to I suppose, getting closer and closer and closer to his genius, and I know that he's ready to do something extremely special in the world. And because he's got this new fabulous one-of-a-kind coaching program. So that's a little bit of a background for everybody and a bit of context. And I'd love, Kane, to just, it's very exciting for people to meet somebody like you. I'd just like to say that, first of all, right? For somebody, normal people, to meet a TV film actor guy is just unusual, and especially for anyone like in the UK and Ireland, like an Aussie actor like that, we're like, wow, So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that, and that it's really exciting to know that, especially in the coaching speaking world, I'm just like, I do from pastime, and then it's kind of it was like I was invited to do it. I've no training, just get up and kind of, I don't even know why I was doing it half the time. But you actually have come from a training background. You're actually professional, you're not like us. It's like so like, just if you just give people a little context of what your professional background is and where you've kind of come from before we go into the coaching program. I'd love to hear that.
Wow. So, my very first memory of being on stage was at the age of 5 years old. And I remember my mum, we were racing through the school playground. She was dragging me, basically, right? We were running late. She's like, hurry up. And I'm 5 years old, kind of getting dragged around. There was this massive big tent, in the middle of the playground. I went to a grammar school. It was quite big, and they were televising it. And I was dressed up as a little carpenter. I had a little carpenter's box, right? And when I was sitting in the wings, it was just people everywhere. It was loud. There was a huge audience. There's televisions, cameras, and I was just like, wow, this like the lights are hot. And then it was my turn to go out on stage, and I just did my thing, and the exhilaration, and I went out and I hammered in a couple of nails and walked across the other side of the stage, and I was like, that was amazing. I want to do that again. And I went through a lot of bullying when I was a kid, and it really had an effect on my own self-esteem, and my courage. And I did a couple of things in school because I had to, but I didn't put myself out there. I became very secluded, very introverted. I didn't have a lot of friends, and all to do with self-esteem. I was kind of a bigger kid, so I was kind of chubby. And that got me a lot of ridicule, and it had, especially from my sister, and that had a really massive effect on my mindset.
Wow.
And there was one particular scene or moment.
Scene in your life.
Yeah, well, this is fundamental. This is why the story extraction method, what I utilize with people, everyone has a claim. Everyone has a particular moment in their life that they claim. And my claim was this moment when I was 10 years old. I was standing in the kitchen at my parents' house. My sister was at the sink and she was getting her lunch ready. It was only like 6:15 in the morning. Like, we had to get up pretty early and travel to school. It was about 45 minutes away. And I was I was waiting there, and the energy in that morning was so intense. Like, it was so heavy, and it was freaking me out. And I was standing about 3 or 4 meters away from my sister, and I could just feel her. And there was like this almost like an anger, right? And I built up the courage just to ask her if she could move over, just so I could use the sink, so I could start preparing my lunch. And I said it pretty quietly, and she spun around in such a rage, and she lunged towards me, 3 meters away. She lunged towards me with a 12-inch carving knife, and I had to bounce back. Like, I lunged backwards, and when I landed, I looked down, and there was this knife blade an inch from my stomach. And it was all in slow motion, and I froze. And she screamed at me at the top of her lungs in this rage of like, "You effing asshole, someone should fucking kill you. You should die. You're so fat and so ugly. No one loves you. You should just go and kill yourself." And it was that moment there, in those words, that I claimed for myself, and I shoved it into my subconscious, and I ran downstairs, and I was hysterical. I was shaking. I was crying. My mum came down the stairs, started, holding me and trying to caress me and nurture me. And that moment there really set the tone for my life. So I believed that I wasn't worthy of love. I believed that I was dumb. I didn't try at school. I kept to myself. Every time I got into an exam, I would freeze. I would freeze there. I would stare at the page for like 2.5 hours and just not be able to thinking that I'm dumb, I'm useless. And that really had a major effect on me. Until I was like 15, and I was at high school, and I was still a pretty big kid at this point. And it was, the school bell had just gone off, and I was walking back to one of the classrooms. And as I was walking back, I could see these two girls that were picking on me, heaps. They were for a year. It was a new school. I'd been there for just over a year, and these two girls were just intense, ripping me apart in all types of scenarios, which just brought back images of my sister. And as I was walking up to the classroom, there was a patio at the front of the classroom. I could see them huddled over, the two of them huddled over. And as I got closer, I could see they had my bag in their hand. And as I got up onto the patio, they'd graffitied my whole bag. And there was derogatory terms and fat and just a whole bunch of name calling. And I lost my shit. I broke down. I screamed at them. I snatched my bag out of their hands. And at the same time, the whole classroom was turning up. So I was in front of everyone, and I started crying, and the just the laughing, listening to people laughing to me and ridiculing me. And it was that moment there that something snapped in me, and I'd had enough. And when I left school that afternoon, I walked up and grabbed my bike, and there was a flyer on the notice board, and it was for a triathlon. And I stared at it, and I stared at it, and then I took it off. I took it off the notice board, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it again. I put it in my pocket, jumped on my bike, rode home, went straight into my bedroom, laid on my bed, pulled it out of my pocket, and started reading it, and just staring at it, and reading it, and reading it, and reading it. And then I walked out of my bedroom, walked into the kitchen where my mum was cooking dinner, and I said, I want to do a triathlon. She kind of looked at me. You what? You want to what? I want to do a triathlon. And she was like, okay. Where? And I said, well, it's in 3 months.
Wow.
And I started training the next day, and my dad would help me. And I used to ride the bike, and he would drive in his car, and every 5Ks, he'd like scream out the window what time I was doing. You're going this speed. You're doing well.
Oh, that's amazing. What a great dad.
And I ended up coming second in the state for my age.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No way. What a transformation. Jeez.
Absolutely. And then all of a sudden, I started getting attention from girls. I started getting attention from other people. People wanted to talk to me. And I shifted my whole life.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, people acknowledged me because I'd thrown the gauntlet down in my own life. I'd had enough. I was like, I'm making something. I'm creating something. And a few months after that, a friend of mine was going to the school restaurant audition. And at the time, I was studying to be an architect, right? In my introvertedness, in my I don't want anyone to pick on me, my little bubble, I was like, you know what? An architect, I get to work in my own space. I can be creative. I can
like a designer.
No one will disturb me.
Yeah.
And she asked me to come along for support. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll support you. Sure. I was 16 at the time. And we got there, and she auditioned, and they all asked me to audition. Wow. And I was like, hey, I'm not auditioning. Are you serious? They kept asking me, and I was like, yeah, you know when you start feeling that welling of like, I just want them to shut up. I just want them to shut up. It's like this echoing noise in your head, and you're like, and you say yes just so they can be quiet. That's what I did.
Wow. So you just said yes to quieten them.
To auditioning.
Yeah.
I auditioned and got the part. And I ended up falling in love. I ended up falling in love with the art. And when we did the performance, a couple of nights of the performance, I bumped into my art teacher. And she looked at me and said, I saw you last night performing. I think you found your gift. And it was the very first time at school that I had some sort of praise, some acknowledgement. And it was that moment there where I was like, oh, so if I work hard at this, I'll get love. I'll get acknowledged.
Okay.
And I started working my butt off, and I changed 2 months later, I changed halfway through the year, I changed all my subjects from architecture, maths 1, science, right, physics, all of this stuff. And I went into arts and speech and drama and dance.
Wow. It's like completely different book, Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing that that you have to acknowledge is when you start living or deciding that you're going to make a shift in your own life and you're going to start directing your own life.
Mm-hmm.
God, the universe, whatever you believe in, will start dropping things in front of you.
Yes.
That, yeah, you're on your path now.
Yes.
You just got to keep going. Yeah, here's another one.
Yeah. Let's get on board. He's on board. He's on board, guys. He's got with the program.
So that was the beginning of my journey. I had that petrifying chat with my dad to tell him that I was going to be an actor. I was bawling. I was at a party. I was waiting until he was drunk. I had all my friends around supporting me. They're like, just tell him now. He's really drunk and happy. And I started crying, and I was like, no, I've decided I'm going to be an actor. I don't want to be an architect anymore. And he was like, he was kind of in shock and just kind of stared at me. He's like, just do what makes you happy. Like,
what a fantastic response. The response everyone would love to hear.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of my journey. And I worked in film and television and theater and street performing and created my own short films. I ended up moving to Sydney for a little while. I was studying down there while I was studying acting, and I was working my ass off to try and get some sort of credit, right? To try and get a good agent. And I've been spending months, I'd be doing short films and making our own short films and putting a show reel together and sending them out to all these agents, and I got nothing, nothing. And I remember sitting at Darlinghurst in Sydney, near the Sydney Opera House, and opposite the Sydney Opera House, actually. And I was sitting there with a friend of mine, and I was just really upset. And we were having a chat, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. You know, I'm doing everything. I was running improvisation workshops for working actors in the industry to keep their skills up to speed, right?
You were training actors.
Yeah, through improvisation. And 2 days later, I got a call from one of the two top agents in Sydney, and they asked me to come in. And I signed up to them, and all of a sudden it was just like, wow, I got recognition. And that was, again, another step, another leveling up, another part of the journey. Yeah, I was 24 at the time. It was intense. And then I got divorced later on in life, and here we are, 4 years after my divorce. I got into coaching, helping people with grief, divorce, separation. Got into transformational coaching. And then I realized a big problem in the coaching industry, in the things that people were getting taught about how to find their niche, about who it is that they are, how they recognize the people that they need to work with. And it wasn't until I was at a healing retreat just over a year ago, where I was there with my kids, and I was there with my partner, and there were all the exercises over the weekend were all, which I found extraordinary. They were all different variations of things that I did through acting. Years and years of like self-awareness and self-research and digging down inside and trusting other people and all of that type of scenario and the embodiment of that. And it was at that point where I was like, wow, I've actually ignored a whole facet of my life and the expertise that I've been able to build and build that certain craft. And it was at that point there where almost overnight it just shifted everything, and I went, I need to go here. This is where I need to go.
Another shift.
this is what I need to teach. I need to teach people how to actually extract and understand their own journey. And as I've been doing that, what I've noticed in all my years of understanding human behavior, in understanding characters that I've played, and understanding people and how they respond. So acting is reacting, right? Everything is reacting. Life is about reacting.
Yeah.
You only react to something because someone's doing something, right?
Yeah.
But the reaction, there is always a reason. There is always a reason behind whatever reaction that you're doing. And that reason is part of the story, part of your journey, part of something. So if it's a negative reaction, then there was something that was negative in your life that's giving you this negative response. The trick to the awareness, to when people start going, I need to be a coach. I just woke up, right? I need to teach something. Which is what people do. They just all of a sudden they're like, holy, I've been through this intense experience, life and death, and I've just woken up, and all of a sudden I have to share this. And it's in this moment that we're able to reflect on our own lives. And what I've discovered is that there's there's 5 steps, right? Five steps. 5 steps. And it's acknowledgement at first, and then it's accepting, and then it's forgiving, healing, and then you get to release it. And the journey just keeps going, because it's really interesting, Caroline. So you can ask me any questions at any point, because I'll just talk, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just waiting to hear you. Yeah, you're creating this beautiful arc of your life story, and exactly what you're teaching other people to do. Those key points in which you make it a key decision, a conscious decision, as I talk about, that has the effect to open yourself up again to a larger version of yourself. So in what you're talking about there, because I talk about the bud, blossom, and flourish, there's an unfolding of our truth each time, but there's a key point and a key decision that you're talking about all the way along on your journey that I find is so amazing to become conscious of. And that's what I feel you're doing, and you're guiding people on. And I think that is so powerful, because when you live a long life, like, you've had so much life experience and get to my age, I'm 48, that, you it's hard to look at your life and to see those key points, to be able to understand how that's happened, and how you've created yourself, and how you are who you are today. And then when you know that, you can actually become more conscious again, to kind of open yourself up again to become this larger version of yourself again. So it's like, I see it as another iteration, So to me, your journey of transformation is just been amazing, especially when it loops right back to the training that you've done as an actor, and that you can see the skills that you had developed in your professional life being brought into the transformational field and just used in a different way. It's a fabulous like realization. When I talk about your destiny, it's like as if I get so excited about this, Kane, actually, because like I talk about this golden thread that comes through our whole life, and it's like this golden thread of truth of who we are designed to be, which is our destiny. And there's a pivotal point in everybody's life that we were all on a trajectory to become a version of ourselves that's been dreamed up by life itself. And that is the heat in our life is always around that. When we get close to that, things get hot, because it's eros, which is like the energy of life itself, the creative force. So even when you talk about that trajectory of your life, it's always been, trying to follow that line, that beautiful golden thread that's brought you to exactly where you're supposed to be at this point in time to serve everyone else.
Absolutely. And I love that golden thread that you create, the imaging and imagery in that. I'm going to add a little bit to that because, and funny enough, a lot of coaches will say, and you'll hear people like Tony Robbins, like, you're not your story, right? And it's true. You're not your story right now. Your story is the building blocks of who you're becoming. But because of these building blocks, so what I find really interesting is that there's a resistance, right? People go through this resistance inside themselves, and that resistance is the resistance between their soul and mind. Because the soul comes through as love, as joy. It already knows what it is. You see children come into this earth, love, exploring, joy, energy, living life in the present. No issues, no expectations. It just is. And that is the beautiful part of the soul. That's the soul living in its utmost power. The ability, children are so connected to energy. And they're so connected to life force. It's freedom. Where we get the resistance is our environment. And we put all these building blocks on top of the soul, right? We go, well, maybe it's this religion or that religion, right? And these are the rules, and you must be like this. And when you go to work, you must dress like this, or this school here, your hair must be like, you must speak like this, you must do this, right? You can't talk now, no. And 50 years ago, it was like children must be silent. So there are all these massive, big containers of belief systems that are getting put on top of the soul until people come to this awareness and go, what's my purpose? It tends to happen when people get to 40 and the crown is opening up and they're starting to question life, and they're like, am I really doing what I'm meant to be doing? And they start looking at their own life, and the soul is constantly knocking at the door, right? Going, hey, let me out.
Yeah.
But where people have that resistance is that they've now got this belief system in their soul, which is the purity, their purpose, which is what they were designed to do in this earth. They've come in here. They've already got their plan. This is the road for you. You keep pure to who you are and follow that track.
Yeah.
And then all these beliefs and all these circumstances, divorce, sexual assault. I was sexually assaulted by the way, so I can say that. And we put all these mechanisms in, and when we start becoming aware, we start looking at our own selves on the inside, and we're trying to undo the belief systems that are in place, right? And it's a journey. All these, like, for instance, to give you an example, when I got sexually assaulted, right, I was 11 years old. And funny enough, it happened after that claim, right, that shoved that psychological process into my subconscious of what I believed I was, which was never mine in the first place, right? But it brought my vibration down, my frequency. And by doing that, I then attract the frequency of the same, right? Which made me a vulnerable prey, if you will. And what I did with that situation was, especially as a man, I didn't tell anyone. No one knew about it, right? Only until about 2.5 years ago, right? I put it in a little box, shoved it away, put a padlock on it, wrapped some chains around it, threw it off the bridge, hopefully sank to the bottom of the river. Doesn't exist. never happened. But we all know that it always keeps knocking unless we open the door in our corridor of life and allow it to escape and be free into the ether. Look at the lessons and everything associated to that. But when an event like that happens, you don't just build a reactive state to that circumstance. You build reactive states of safety to a whole bunch of sensory areas: be sight, sound, color, taste, smell, some sort of tone. And it's when you come to that awareness of, okay, I've forgiven. I only forgave this like 2.5 years ago.
It's very recent, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. I was sitting there in the kitchen and I was listening to Les Brown, and he was talking about that. He said that there's an old African proverb: if you've got resentment, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. And I was like, yeah, that's a good statement. And I opened the fridge, and as I opened the fridge, that memory popped in my head, and I was like, oh my God, holy shit, I've never forgiven that person about that. And I've never forgiven myself about that. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I fell into the fridge. I was leaning into the fridge. I was getting cold in my back. I was just bawling. I was just letting it all out. And it was that moment, 4 weeks later, that the most beautiful woman came into my life. You know, I'd spent years, a couple of years, working so hard on all the inner stuff. And this was like that last little bit to get me over the edge, to make me ready for another partner in my life. And what I noticed, so I did the forgiving, right? I accepted, I forgave, I released it. What I noticed just a few months ago, so I had a circumstance which was associated to my ex-wife. And I won't bring it up because we're in the middle of it still. I won't give the full details yet. But it was pretty intense. And I retracted into a shell. I pulled myself away from everyone. And I went inward. And my partner brought it up a couple of days later. And I was just like, I'm just processing. And she was a little bit upset about it, like, because I wasn't sharing anything with her. And I'd shut myself off, like emotionally, I'd shut myself off. And I started questioning myself, well, where's this reactive state coming from? What's this related to? Because remember, everything is related to something that's happened, whether it's from your ancestors or even past life, right? There's something associated to it. You're reacting for a reason to something that's associated to you and your story. And what I figured out was that it was associated to that sexual assault.
Wow.
Because during it, I had to retract myself into a safety cave. To feel safe, to be quiet, to not say anything that will protect me. And that's where it came from. So what I started realizing was that there's a couple of certain really intense moments that I've had in my life where I would go into that state. And that's where it started from. Now that I could acknowledge it, I could accept it, forgive it, heal it and release it and just move on. But that's what we do. We create energetic strands to one circumstance. And we have to be aware of that. And we have to know that our journey is never over. We're always constantly finding something.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And the way you describe that so well, because that's why I use the bud, blossom, and flourish, because the bud stage is like what you're saying, we're clammed down and we're closed up to ourselves, and we're insulated. We're kind of trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to pull ourselves back in for protection, but when we're in that state, nobody can see our beauty. Nobody can see what we have to come, to bring to the world. And it takes self-awareness around that, and it also takes an environment of warmth and of care and of understanding to allow somebody to open up, and it's the opening up then, and getting that, on your journey as well, like, and how you help people is like that opening up of the heart space nearly, and to have that bravery to bring themselves to the world, because that's what we need. We need that beauty within everybody, and the seeds like within the flower to spread around. And I think what's really keen, and what I would love to talk to you about, is what you're talking about, what happens to the voice. Because we talked before we came on here about, I'm very keen about people's voices and the power of their voice, the power of, which links with the power of their story that you work with, and how you express your story, but also what's the quality of the truth of your voice. As in, is there a part of yourself that's actually on mute?
100%.
And are you finding that especially with what I'm really interested in, people are already out in the public eye, already out as speakers, already, like you say, actors, people are already out there on stage, but are they still acting? Is there a part of them that's muted, that's not actually, and that's what I feel you're helping people with, to take the mute off their true voice.
I just want to acknowledge your awareness in that, and thank you for seeing that, because that's exactly what I teach. So there's one really good communication coach that I saw him do something. He's quite well known, and he said something along the lines of, it's not imaginable for someone who hasn't spoken on stage before to be able to come out and speak on stage, and for them to take on a character and be someone else, so they don't feel like they're a vulnerable person in doing it and fearing something. Now, I tend to disagree. And the reason for that is that the only fear that we get is the fear that we create in our own self, which is judgment. So we're judging. When we think that someone is judging us, we're judging ourselves because we think someone's judging us. So we're just judging. There's so much expectation and judgment that we put on ourselves, rather than allowing ourselves just to be. There are certainly tips and tricks and novelties to speaking, but the true essence is talking from your heart. Serving about who you are. And this is what I really want to acknowledge in what you brought up is, so there's a visualization that I take people through called the corridor of life, right? And in that corridor of life, there are doors all down this corridor. And when you're born, every door in this majestic corridor is open, right? And there's a beautiful breeze. It's energy, right? That's why kids are so free, so joyful, and love, right? There's this energy that's just flowing through them. But then something happens to them and they don't know how to process it. And they shut a door on it, come back later. And each event that they don't know how to process the grief associated to it, because remember, losing your favorite toy at that age is everything, right? That's grief. That's a process. But because they don't know how to process it, we shut doors on it. And through our teenage years, we'll have something happen to us. We shut a door on it, like me, sexually assault, shut a door on it, right?
Mm.
And it affects our energy. It might not in our teens and 20s and 30s, but you get to your 40s, your 50s, and you're drained.
Mm.
And that's because you've got all these doors shut on all these little boxes where there's a whole bunch of knocking going on behind it because they want to get out, and you're holding it there. No one should know. So it affects who you are. So people will ask you a deep question about something, and all of a sudden, if it's associated to something that you don't want to bring up because you've never told anyone about it before, you'll freeze and you'll like get uncomfortable and you'll get all nervous and fragile, and you're like, yeah, no, I don't know anything about that. Right? It affects energy.
Yes.
And 20% of your energy is burnt by the mind every day. So if you add on top of that a whole bunch of memories that you're trying to keep quiet because you don't want to face it, because you think it's going to be too painful, because the healing's in the feeling.
I love that. Great. Yeah.
You are destroying your own ability to create the natural process of energy that comes from our human body, from our soul. Because it's the soul's energy that's really there, right?
Yeah. And that's how we connect. And then, I suppose that's changing the power of our ability to connect. And like, your program is about unleashing, the power of your story. And why is that? Because so that you can connect with your audience, but you need to be able to connect with your audience to be able to transfer that message that you have to bring to the world. So the power of that, like, I suppose I did a post about empathy during the week, and I really thought that was so amazing that we're talking about story, because really, because I know in your training as well, you talk a lot about, you're asking people to reveal themselves more and more so that they can connect. Yes, that people can feel empathy for them, because what I talk about is that's the building, that's the cement that builds secure connection. So when people can hear your story, then they have a chance to feel that in themselves. So you're actually also, it's not just you telling your story, you're unlocking. When you tell your story, you unlock the door in somebody else's corridor of life, as you talk about. So you have the power, when you can be that courageous soldier to actually unlock that door, open it up, share your story. Then you have the power through your voice, through your presence, through who you are, to connect with another person, and you're giving them the keys that they can automatically, open their door up, and the breeze starts to flow. Because we all know what that feels like. When you hear somebody that has said something that you haven't had the courage to recognize in yourself, especially like you said about the sexual abuse, when somebody else is brave enough to say that, and you hear that, you just like, just a release of, like we talk about the air. You just deflate, because all the energy that you're holding in your nervous system to keep yourself safe, because you're trying to keep yourself safe. That's why you have all those things locked away. It's so powerful. So that's what I'm so excited to know, that your program is here and you're ready to bring that to people on that journey, because in its intensive training, because I know you're talking about you do 5-hour intensive workshops, so like, tell us about that. Tell us about what happens in there, and what people, first of all, like, who are, is it speakers that you're inviting into the program, and then what will they expect, and what is this program, it's what's the length of it, how do you bring people through that transformational process, really, you know, because I know it's a unique method that you've kind of distilled from all of your expertise, all of your life story, all of your acting skills, all of your understanding of, you know, identity and everything, and your communication skills. Like, there's so much packed into this method. So it's a very powerful tool for people. So I'd just love to know, like, number one, who is it you wanting, you know, and then what do they expect to get from the program?
So at the moment, I've got a whole bunch of coaches in the program.
Yeah.
And coaches have to speak.
Yes.
and the, you know, a lot of coaches, new coaches, fail in their business or fail in that area to be able to produce results because they're not willing to do that particular aspect of speaking, of putting themselves out there, showing people who they are as a product. At the end of the day, a coach is a product. And they have to be, when we bring up authenticity, it's about understanding the journey. Because when you understand who I am, you can reflect about, wow, you've been through this. I mean, I've been through domestic violence where I was the victim, you know, and had to leave that relationship because it was tearing me apart. And I had a couple of kids there. So, and that was, you know, 25 years ago. And, you know, all those processes are all part of the healing process and accepting it. And what I take people through is, so the first 3 weeks is all just about the story extraction process. And I only do 4 people in a group.
Okay.
Because it's intense.
Yeah.
It's real. It's safe. It's one of the biggest comments that I keep getting from people, how safe I make people feel. To allow them to engage with their memories. And the beautiful part about it is that you don't know when a memory is going to pop up that you've never thought about in 40 years.
Yeah.
Just by tapping away and chiseling, tapping away and chiseling, and getting a little deeper and getting a little deeper and following the method. Because there is a method, that story extraction method. You've seen it. You've seen part of it, right?
Yeah.
Takes people on that journey of how they've actually constructed their lives.
And I had a realization in that workshop too that I hadn't thought of before. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So the beautiful part that's been going on, and I'm doing some energy healing training at the moment too, which is just going to be a really great tool to add to myself. But all these people in the first 2 weeks, there are so many shifts that, because what I'm also teaching them is how to connect to their ideal client, who it is. And they'll discover that in their story. Once they really understand who it is that they are, that claim. So for me, my claim is part of the people, and everyone that has worked with me has got self-worth issues, self-love issues, abandonment issues, been through sexual assault, been through a divorce. There is a resonance of everyone that has worked with me, that there's a resonance of my story to their story. And that only happens because I share my story. And that's what this group has discovered, is that they're discovering that there's a whole world, a whole encyclopedia of stories that they have inside them that are empowering, because now they're clear on who it is that are actually magnetizing to them. And they're starting to see how powerful. So you would have experienced this in this masterclass. By the time you got to the end of the journey, you started looking at your life from an empowering point of view and going, wow, I created all of this and it brought me to here. And there is this whole beautiful envelope of how I can actually view my life.
Yeah, okay. And actually, it was funny for me because I tend to look at the positive part of my life. You see, I'm kind of, it's like I've heard somebody talk about the paths, different paths, and mine is the illumined path. So mine is kind of the illumined path. So I kind of follow the light. So I didn't really look at the dark, you know. And for me, it's about kind of like, you know, I have that sense, and I notice it in other people as well, that it's like I follow my potential, but I hear this voice every now and again. It keeps going, "You're still pretending. You're still pretending.
Ooh,
You're still
really?
pretending." So
Really?
every time I hear that, I have to level up. And then I get to that level, and then it goes, "You're still pretending. You're still pretending." And then I go, "Oh, where am
Interesting.
I pretending again?" There's another layer. And then because I get scared and I say, "Oh God, but you want me to go so high? I can't, how can I climb that high? Because such a height that I have to get him." So you're still pretending, you know? So that's what I feel what you're doing is so amazing for people who are like myself, people who
Wait a
are
second.
already. Yeah,
Wait,
go
wait,
ahead. Go
wait,
ahead.
wait, 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 wait. You're just throwing this away. You're throwing. No, no, no. I want to ask you about this. Where's this pretending coming from? What's that about?
It's like, I think, like what you say from your childhood, like that you're kind of the shy child that's like didn't really. And I did a post last week about being on. I was always on stage. I spent a lot of time on stage as a child. I was always in the chorus, really happy to be with everyone singing and, you know, being on stage, but not really wanting to step up into the limelight.
Mm.
And there's a part of me that is like, I know that I haven't been called to step into the limelight, but I don't really want to be in the limelight. I want everybody else to be in the limelight. But then it's like life is saying, Karen, if you don't go in the limelight, everybody else won't be able to be in the limelight either. So it's like I keep having to kind of like, yeah, like it's like another layer of revealing myself, you know? So I just think that's so, it's like what you're doing is like that, helping people to move through the, and it's like that there's no voice around that. I don't feel there's obviously a doorway, something that's locked, but I don't have an awareness of it because it's out of my awareness, you know? So it's like each time that happens, I go like, what is it that I'm not looking at? What is it that I'm not looking at the dark side because I'm so focused on the light? So the power of looking into the opening those rooms is so powerful. So each time I do that, I I that's why I have the bud blossom and flourish. I know like I get larger and I feel it like my energy just goes and it creatively I want to do more. You know, it's like I'm able to do more. It's not that I want to, it's like because I want to, but there's an ability in myself then just goes, you're just going to get bigger and bigger the more you do that. So I feel that's exactly what you're coaching people in, you know, and it
Yes.
has a huge, it's really tapping into something very transformation, very, I suppose it's getting closer to the true potential of the human at this point in time because it's like as if there's capacities within ourselves that we don't even realize that we can tap into. So it's like the more and more you do that, it's even part things that you haven't seen before in the world, you know? You're going into the unknown of what's already been here nearly, you know? And that's what it feels like, what's going to be revealed within people that we don't even know exists yet, you know? So it's like this really going into the unknown, going into outer space nearly, you know?
You're passing off on this pretending thing.
Yeah.
I really want to know where this pretending's coming from. Is this like a divine voice? Or is this coming from somewhere else, or is this really associated to you?
I think no, this is more of a direction. When I know I get a direction that I have to like, sometimes I get a very keen. It's a direction, like it's I'm being told something. So it's like this is what I'm being told
Right.
to look at. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really interesting, Caroline.
yeah.
It's really, really very interesting that the pretending part is because a lot of people pretend, right?
Mm,
A lot of people pretend. There's masks everywhere.
mm,
And look, we take on the embodiment of certain characters throughout the day. Father, everyone's got masculine and feminine. When you're able to balance between the two, when needed, I need to be masculine right now, or I need to be
mm,
feminine. I need to nurture my children, and I need
mm.
to connect to my partner, and I need to make them feel special. It's tapping into that ability to really connect, and the process that the people are going through at the moment. So let me define it this way. If you could give your book of life to someone and go, "Hey, read that, that's me."
Mm.
And they read it, you kind of go like, "Hey, I'm proud, right? Just like it? It's good, right?"
Mhm.
Right? And then you got no fear because they know everything about you.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're like, "Yeah, that's me." I know. It's crazy, right? I know. I can't believe I went through that. It's unbelievable. And I'm still alive.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's like it feels like as if I've taken so many masks off that it's like there's another one. Every time it's like, I tell you what it's like. It's like as if that's why I call it the unfolding, because it's like every time you reveal yourself, there's another layer, there's another level, there's another mask. The way you take one off and then you're just like, oh, yeah, I'm 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 in my authenticity. But then do you realize there's another one that you didn't know was there, and then there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. So it's like that's what I feel like. I keep doing it, taking it off, but there's another layer, there's another layer, there's another petal that has to open, kind of way. So that's what it feels like to me, and I just I feel. I feel, because I'm always talking about the flourishing, because I feel like if you say as a coach for yourself and what you're doing with people and you're revealing them them to themselves, that it has this effect, like if one person blooms and then it has a kind of cross pollination, and that we all flourish together. So it's like, I just love the idea of your program, and especially for speakers, because when you think of people who are already have a following, already have I suppose serving, but making them more potent and
Mm,
distilling them and making them more powerful has a huge effect. So your coaching can have an exponential effect then, because if you're taking people who already have, you know, a presence, we'll say, online, and then making them more powerful, because I think that's, to me, where you sit. You're really just making people who have become empowered even more powerful, and then they can empower so many other people. So it's just your positioning is a really exciting place, and especially because you've had the training that you've had as well. You've had the creative training, and you've also had the life training of coming through all of that, and have this story that you can share, and people feel, like you said, safe, because the safety is what helps people, those things to come up, because people, when they feel safe, like even in a teaching environment, creativity doesn't flourish unless it feels nurtured,
mm,
you know and it has to be nurtured, and you have to be very gentle and caring and loving, and you create that beautiful loving environment for the creativity to flower. And the same with the healing happens hand in hand. So it's because I feel what's happening at the moment is like this really powerful push. The creative force is pushing through all of the conditioning, and it's bringing it up to the surface. And I know you're saying there's a lot of transformation happening in the workshop at the moment. You're seeing people really change kind of quickly. So I feel like there's a readiness in people, and there's like the life force is pushing through, and it just wants to come through more, really, like it's there's a force basically coming through people. And like it's like as if they're ready to pop. Sometimes I talk about it being like popcorn, but they just need that environment, that safe environment, like the pot, when you're the kernels, put the kernels into a pot to make the popcorn. They need that safe environment, and for somebody to know to guide them like yourself, and it's just amazing that you've got to the stage because there's a readiness in you that's meeting the readiness in people, and that's so clever, the genius of life, that divine timing, that
Yes.
your potential has met other people's readiness, so
Yes.
you've been on this journey of your whole life to be ready for this point in time, to be able to bring people to the next level, so that they can bring people to the next level, so it's
Yeah.
this fabulous, like an explosion, an atom bomb,
That's what it's like.
yeah.
Like I'm very hands-on with the people in this group. I I know what it takes to up level very quickly
Mm,
when you have to allow the dust to settle at the same time. And all these people started, this is who I serve. It's been 2 weeks in and they've all gone, holy, this is who I serve. And they discovered that.
mm,
They discovered in their own selves that this is what they're meant to be doing.
mm,
And this is who they're meant to be serving. Because we get drummed a lot about, oh, it's you should do this, or these people have money, or it's
mm, mm.
or it's you 5 years ago, or it's your mess, and it's not. it's it's actually really discovering certain aspects and traits and personality and soul that's in you already, that people start discovering that. And just to finish up with where these people are going, they're starting, they are reaching out. So now they get the clarity, they understand who they are, they can start talking about their stories, they start work. There's By the end of it, they'll have a fully functioning running masterclass presentation,
Mhm.
intertwining their tools with their story, so they can bring people in. And part of the whole process is talking to people. Come in to hear, I'm teaching this now. This is what I'm teaching. Come and enjoy the experience. So they can actually show who they are, express it, be a powerful speaker, and magnetize those clients to them. So
Mm.
that's the end game. Right at the end, I will take each individual on an interview journey with me,
Wow.
talking about their story and allowing them, again, feeling safe with my type of questioning, to allow themselves to express themselves, to look at their journey and being able to use that as part of their marketing, who they are, get that out there. It's a beautiful, beautiful ending.
It sounds so fantastic, Kane, and really thrilled. We're actually nearly over the hour, and we've just, I feel, tipped into it. But you've really given people a sense of yourself, your life, your own story, your passion, and I suppose the introduction into what they're going to expect in the intensity of that, workshop that you have created. So how can they sign up, and when is it starting? When's the next one? Because I know you're taking in, you're working with people at the moment, but you're opening doors to the next round of people, that's launching. Is in January or?
Yes, in January. Yes.
Okay.
So starting to accept people for the January intake.
Okay.
And you can contact me through Facebook. I'm also, you've got all my details. You're going
We
to
can,
post that?
yeah, we can
Are you
post
gonna
the
post that?
links
Yeah.
underneath this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'm on Facebook. I'm also with the Infinity Wellness Group.
Yeah.
So theinfinitywellnessgroup.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on there on the front page. I'm part of the team there. So you can book a call through there if you want to get straight onto me.
Brilliant.
And that's it. And everything's about relationships. And the biggest, if I can end with this, everything is about relationships. These speakers and these coaches that get so scared about selling, and it's not about selling. It's nothing about selling. It's about serving, but it's also about understanding the person that you're dealing with. You can't help someone if you don't know them. It's like going to a doctor, and there's GPs everywhere, right? Or an osteopath. If you don't resonate with that person, right, you're just like, that was a waste of money. Right? And if that's a waste of money, it's same with a coach. If you're not resonating with that person because they're a good salesperson and they get you in the door, and then all of a sudden you're like, I know I've been there. And you're like, you just don't have anything that I actually resonate with you. Like, we're so opposite, and like, you got great information, but I just got nothing.
Yes.
So teaching people to be able to really understand them, so they can then understand their clients or their guests, to build those relationships and nurture and nurture and nurture and care and take them on a journey. And that's part of the whole process too. And also teaching them a certain skill set of questioning, which is something that is very paramount in coaching.
Well done, Kane, and thank you so much for creating this program, because I'm so excited about it. I really am. I just think the potential of what it can do is just fabulous, and I really, I suppose, as thinking of even you say, it's intensive, there's 4 people in each group, but I know the power of when one person really stands in their truth and stops pretending, makes a massive, huge impact across. It can inspire millions, as you say, Kane.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's what you're here to do, inspire millions, as you say. And thank you so much. And we'll just leave it there. And thank you, everybody in Australia, for watching, and Ireland and UK and America and all the time zones across the world. And please get in touch with Kane. And he has a 20-minute free session as well, if you just want to have a chat with him, and just to see if you resonate, like he's talked about, because, he is what he is here. I would say, from being in his workshop, he's no different, because some people are one way online, and then when they come off, they're different. I will say in testament that he's exactly the same in the workshop as he is here. So it's like, what you get is what you see, and it's just, I would definitely give you a seal of approval on that, because your energy is the same, your commitment is the same, your passion is the same. And if you resonate with him here, this is what you're going to get, So please take that action, that creative action, get in touch with him, just invest in yourself and do that 20-minute talk with Kane, and he will start you on that journey of stepping into your true potential so you can inspire millions. So thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you so much, Kane, for coming. And I just bless you and all the work that you're doing in the world, and sending you love and lots of nourishment for your own unfolding. Okay, Kane, thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline. Really beautiful to be here, and I really acknowledge your presence, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much again, and it's been an absolute my pleasure to have you here and taking the time to talk to us all. Okay, everybody, we'll see you back here next Saturday, and I have another beautiful person to talk to. Nancy from the Business Mission is on next week to talking about her coaching as well. Okay, talk to you all again. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Bye.